The first one is Dr. Eric Ndushabandi. Dr. Eric Ndushabandi is a Rwandese, a doctor in political science, and is a professor at the University of Rwanda and director of ERDP. He's joining us via Zoom from Belgium. I don't know if... Hello, Eric.
Can you hear me?
Hello, Eric.
Yes.
Good evening.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
And can you see my presentation PowerPoint?
Yes, we can see it. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I'm humbled to be here online, and thank you, Your Eminence and Excellencies, and my friends, editors of this book, Elise Michel Marcel, for keeping me, despite the giving 10-15 minutes, as I've been told. My role is very, very difficult, exactly. I'm a former seminarist. I recognize some bishops and colleagues. From there, I failed to pursue my theology, and it means I may make some mistakes. I will not quote any verse of the Bible, so I'm not good in that for now. But what is good is coming from this experience to my role as a political scientist and a very practitioner in the civil society organization. I'm the former director of the Institute for Research and Dialogue for Peace. I'm engaged in different initiatives in peace building and locally in Rwanda and internationally. So allow me really to thank the authors and contributors to this book. I will play a role of a practitioner, but also as an academic. I will consider some concepts, but to see how this book is a very, very important contribution to this resilience journey in Rwanda. Reinventing, why? I like the title, as everyone said already. It is action-oriented. It is about taking responsibility. It is time, really high time, to see the Catholic Church proposing to us this prestigious and very important book. It's courageous. Deciding to reinvent, but not just celebrating, to face challenges and to be oriented to hopes when hope was down in 94. In terms of analytical perspective and the approach, we can see the rationalization of the reflection, the consideration of values, which is normative, and the beliefs, but also action-oriented, which is a very interesting perspective from theology to social and the practical orientation. Who is the audience for this book? Please grab your book. Your copy is a very important book for anyone. You can be a Christian. I was putting on my social media that you cannot be even a Christian and you need this book. Clergy, academia, scholars, theologians, religious, but historians, political actors, but also peace builders. I'm pointing out here civil society organization. I hope I could have some practitioners in the room. When you conceive the book, you can't put it in one discipline. It's really, really, really multidisciplinary. You can see history, you can see philosophy, dialectic, comparative studies, political science, and up to psychology and the transitional justice as a domain of post-conflict reconstruction processes. It is paper by paper an opportunity maybe to think about producing some guide and manual for effective use in our education. And this is a manual for education, history education, peace values, and all this infused in faith-based education and values. So this book is a contribution for the nation-building approaches in political science, because it fits very well in transitional justice. Look at this number of concepts used over the articles and the papers, very rich. They brought out memory, identity, forgiveness, truth, guilty, mea culpa, trauma healing, work of memory, reparation. All these are very rich in political, social sciences, anthropology, where post-conflict and here post-genocide societies have been contributing since the 90s to this discipline of transitional justice, which is becoming continuously a discipline and a very interdisciplinary course. I mentioned that this book is timely as well, as we are celebrating, commemorating 75th anniversary of the UN Convention for Genocide Prevention and Repression. Let me present some highlights just for our reflection and for our engagement as the spirit of the book is bringing us to this perspective. One, it's very courageous to see Father Marcel and many others authors to approach the history of Rwanda, which is very complex. And you remember that after 90s, we had to close our history education teachings and engaging in some perspective from official memory, which was transmitted through Ngando from the beginning and all political discourses. The post-genocide context could say there is no way to find any historical narrative to give to people. So to see Catholic Church as we saw in colonial legacy, to see that missionaries and the so-called historians and ethnographers, how the history have been distorted and falsified. And the book today is coming back to this history writing or historiography. So it is a very important added value to this reflection to history, and it can inform our curriculum at Rwanda Education Board, as well as a contribution to peace education program in Rwanda. I have been engaged in this matter. You look at the book, when you go through, you see that it's very chronological. It's very chronological and comparing different literature in French and English, which is very rich. We have been having many literature in French, but authors and Marcel here and others have been touching on this literature. It's very important. So it means I'm quoting unconcerned injustice and unconcerned memories, but also unconcerned identities, interpretation of origin of people, all these processes which led to this radicalization and genocide ideology. But there is a reason for hope. And the hope was built around the resistance to the evil, the resistance to genocide and the heroism in Kwarizatu. Second, here in terms of science, the book is a very great contribution to genocide studies. And I hope the University of Rwanda is sitting there and many other scholars who can see this as an opportunity to go further about comparison. Comparison is a very needed approach to understand at the same time specificities of Tutsi genocide, but also the Jewish in Europe. We can see some thematic analysis and variables for a basis for a comparative study. We can see from radicalization processes in two different contexts, genocidal mechanisms, the role of the state, propaganda, militia, and to see how ordinary people, I could say, ordinary Christians becomes killers, understanding specificities of every context. Interesting enough, it's about values education. And here we are back. Are there any faith-based values we can put in our education systems? Bishop Rukamba is bringing it very clearly and very concrete. And I will insist on this, not because I'm just a professor, but it's very important because it's a big audience. It's about youth in our education system. As far as we have a chance to have this education for all, this is a big population. So this is why I'm insisting very much on this paper of Rukamba and education. It's a contribution to evaluate the role of the church as a societal role in Rwanda. and the values education, say, how do we stand today? Where can we find these values? In the Bible? And people like me who doesn't have time to read the Bible every time, what do we do exactly for our young people who are digital and going for TikTok and so on? How do we find those values and faith-based values to be infused in our systems and in our daily life? There is a room for opening a conversation between the state, on the education board here, to be processed, and the Catholic Church. And I will say why at the end. History and peace education needs the contribution of the church, please. And I know, as far as I'm talking to Catholic Church and the government and the civil society organizations, there is a room really for the conversation and to fill the gaps here. Teachers, Bishop Rukamba insisted very much on the formation of teachers or capacity building of our teachers. I have been turning around in schools for peace education program and human values education in my work, in my organization. You find that young people are in between teachers and the parents or villages or communities. How do we touch on sensitive topics? So this can come out just by opening spaces, developing extracurricular education programs, clubs, teacher, student, and the parents interaction, using arts and cultural practices. I appreciate that we are now talking about cultural values, which are in our songs, in our cultures. It's very important to integrate all this approach, which is very documented, and you have many specialties in this kind of methods. So how the church is open to other methods to be integrated. So the intergenerational and the transgenerational dialogue spaces are some of the concrete perspectives Bishop Rukamba is bringing out, which can bring me as a parent to say, there is a reason to bring my children in a Catholic church, no, in a Catholic school today, that the Catholic church or the Catholic school can go beyond land and administration. This is very provocative, I know. But I remember when I was in the conference, when this book was being designed, this was my question what can bring a parent today to go for a Catholic informed school? So, basing on this perspective, I say there is a reason to go there, and we have to find specificities for these programs. Church in the reconciliation, what does it mean? His Eminence Kambanda, in his paper, he is contributing to this conversation about transitional justice in Rwanda, but it can be a lesson for Africa, where we are having a difficult, sustainable transition justice mechanisms. He's talking about sameness. He's talking about understanding, common understanding about the history, talking about forgiveness and compassion, reparation, individual journey versus collective journey. So how can we have a tailored evangelization by categories and by levels? And he's pointing out the importance, the necessity to integrate healing and trauma-informed education and evangelization programs. So my question is, and I was requested to bring the audience for the further work, what to do next. What approaches for healing forgiveness? Are we talking about the truth with grand T or the truth with small t's? It means what? Just here the history and the truth have been approached in this book as it is serving unity and reconciliation. So the truth here is not about the debate, the classical debate between historians about objectivity and subjectivity in history education, but how this is oriented to the ideal of unity and reconciliation. So this is a high time to formalize practices and bringing individual initiatives. I can quote here some examples where we have been seeing priests in parish and programs where they are bringing survivors with ex-prisoners or genocidaires to talk and to embrace and to go for mea culpa and forgiveness. But those initiatives are disparate. I know I talked to His Eminence about this, how all these initiatives can be combined and to look at the cross-cutting idea behind and to develop some models and guides which can be a contribution of Catholic Church in Rwanda to show how they have been part of the process. Otherwise, to record, if we don't record all these practices and consolidate it in conceptualization in terms of approaches and evaluation, mode of evaluation, we can't say that we can give a lesson to other churches or other countries. I will go very quickly. The content is very clear. It's about a table of values. You know, humanity is at the central. The social responsibility, it is well said, very much developed. And I insist on this social responsibility. It's very, very highly needed in Rwanda. I have been saying this in the Unity Club and other places, that as our young people, our Christians, are lacking this civic engagement. And good enough, we have this ministry now here of unity and engaging with the civic engagement. It's very important to not be just a world of passive Christians. This is a risk of Catholic education programs. To create social responsibility, meaning in these memorialization processes, as we emphasize the brotherhood, as this has been said. The temple, as my friend Segataga was saying it, the human being which is sacred, l'idée du sacré qui a été perdu, which is very important to bring it back, that our young people, our younger generation should have, bagomba kugira icyo batinya, non pas la peur du sacré, mais intégrer le sacré dans leur vie. It's a very important perspective as well. Churches as buildings, temple of God, but also Jesus' body, all this rhetoric in evangelic education, it brings all this memorization process to this lieu de mémoire. It's very important to go for this perspective and to go further and to see what actions and programs can be conceived for this parish where victims have been buried. So the preservation of memory and the reparation is very clearly highlighted in this book, which is a very important contribution as we go for 30th anniversary of genocide against Tutsi. So the theology of brotherhood must be a cross-cutting education, value education, which will guide all this social reconciliation as many of authors have been contributing. The sense of humanity, the human values education. We belong to the human society. And when it is infused by God and the Catholic and the Bible, and God is a Catholic Church education content, I think it's very important to bring back this trust in the church and bring back the
hello,
trust,
Eric. Eric, hello.
Yes. Responsibility, the sense of responsibility, and the theology of suffering. It's very, very, very strong, and the sense of sacrament. Yeah, I maintain the three words, that our baptism is about love, our Eucharisty is about communion, and our confirmation is about engagement. It's very strong content, which needs really to go for a very concrete manual, which can be integrated in different content. The trust and the truth, the justice, and I liked the sense of leadership. Here, very clearly, I saw my friend Father Ganza, who was talking about positionality, to see how clearly when it's about good politics, which is about successful resilience journey, Catholic Church have to take position without being any complex of saying, oh, I'm becoming maybe very much politician, or I'm being biased by Catholic, by political orientation. If it's about good politics, why don't we take this decision of saying, Ndu Munyarwanda, it's about union, it's about unity. this can be integrated, as Inosaruga said in his paper. Okay, responsibility from individual to institutional in terms of leadership. All these have been on the menu of rethinking why leadership should be infused by this visionary leadership, as well as we are talking about good politics. So the goodness and the friendship and the humanity, I think it's very important to bring it back, and I like also to face the reality of Jesuits who have been killed in church. And I'm saying, imagine if a Jesuit have killed, for example, or a priest have killed. It's very important today to say, this recognition and the responsibilities, which is bringing us for a meta-narrative, going beyond ordinary narrative or revenge. It's a meta-memory, which is a contribution for human rights, human values, and to inform our memorialization process. The collective memory will come from there in terms of individual confession, healing, and the meta-memory, which is based on forgiveness and addressing traumatic memories. Yeah, without boring you with this, but I saw the church as a conducive space for a travail de mémoire. You know, it's a space for a healing. It's about for national identity consciousness development. It's a space for national collective memory. As we are seeing in this book, some convergences about different narratives and interpretation of our past. But pay attention on my sentences here. Say, is the church going to take position around this travail de mémoire? Are we going to say all memories are equal? Are we going for saying all truth are needed now and here? So I think all this process should go progressively integrating all sensitivity and playing with the time as our nation is going for shining. And this is where Ganza was saying that as recognizing that the nation is shining today, we have to acknowledge that there is a miracle around this. There is something which is being done and very courageously. So I think here the Catholic Church is saying, on this journey, let's be critical, let's contribute. But if the critics are just negative, then I say it is very easy responsibility. But when you say it's a very constructive criticism, saying this is my contribution, then here we are in the state and the church relationship, which is a positive engagement and very constructive. By concluding and way forward, I would detain some just few ideas. Yes, fathers have been very clear. If you keep silence, il s'agit d'une complaisance, il s'agit d'un silence coupable, il s'agit du réductionnisme, il s'agit du révisionnisme, et donc we have to say something absolutely. And this is the meaning of this book, going beyond the shame, going beyond the guilty or accusation around the Catholic Church, but we are now starting and we are taking responsibility, but we have to record all these practices which contribute to the resilience of this society and the country. Now the task is here, and I don't know how this can be approached. I'm keen to see, after this book launch, a large program of operationalizing this recommendation. How can we produce some guiding documents, small manual, can be used by every priest, can be used by every Christian, and the catechist as well in Umuryango Remezo and everywhere. How this education program can be revised and be infused by these values and taking responsibility for these young people who are coming to the church every Sunday. So I'm recommending very much that we look back to the article produced by Bishop Philippe Rukamba and to see the well and detailed and action-oriented recommendations can be operationalized. and we are ready to support and contribute. Last but not least is about stakeholders meeting. I'm seeing a room for bringing now stakeholders, Catholic Church taking action by saying, let's bring together government or decision makers in different ministries. I'm seeing here Minister of Minuvumwe and the Minister of Education to see what we can do and act really. So keeping separation, disengagement between church and state, but we can critically and constructively engage with the government and civil society organization, learning from experience of civil society organization in terms of healing, forgiveness, and peace education values. I think there is a room for enriching each other's and going for very concrete action for change. I will not end by ignoring the youth who are at the center. I could love to have many young people in this room. And the focus on youth in and out of Catholic Church with a participatory and critical think development, rationalization of the faith for change and for action, all this based on humanity, which is at the center. The last way forward and take home is a reflection we have been having, and I'm glad that I've been participating in this reflection with the recommendation of His Eminence, the ECAS, the Association de la Conférence Épiscopale de la Région de Grand Lac. My question is, what is the position of the government, I mean by the church, on what is going on now in the region at the Eastern Congo? The ideology of genocide is going on. It is high time to collaborate with the other Catholic churches in the region to see what we can do and take position. And this will be preventive. Let's go for prevention, not just evaluate the action of Catholic Church as a failed role, but now for prevention role. I was proposing that ECAS, it's a framework, which is an exploration of possibility, but Jesuits and others, you have many ways of engaging, but I'm calling for an emergency to create a regional network where Catholic Church can act by preventing and by education for peace and sustainable development in the region. Thank you very much for kind attention.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. We are now going to listen to Father